Oh, hi, Your Honor. Yes. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak at my sentencing today. Here's my sentencing statement. I'm good, Your Honor. I think we both know, Your Honor, your decision. Hold on, let me just get comfortable, Judge. Second. I think we both know your decision's been made up when you sat down. Watch is uncomfortable, not really. I think your mind's already been made up, Your Honor. In fact, I've asked my lawyer not to say anything either, because he's $800 an hour, and let's just keep the cost down, considering your mind has already been made up. Sound crazy? Not as crazy as you think. Hardly a day passed in federal prison without someone lamenting that their judge had already made up their mind the day of their sentencing, that nothing they or their lawyer could have said at sentencing would have influenced that process. So if you're working under the mistaken belief or presumption that your judge's mind is already made up, the question then is, what can you do before sentencing? What questions can you answer in the judge's mind to ensure you get the shortest possible sentence? So if you're going to pack it in the day of sentencing, if you're not going to do anything truly to prepare the day of sentencing, all of the mitigation has to lead up to that moment. Before I get going, if you find value in this video, please like and subscribe so you'll get notified as we continue to produce more content for you. So as you're approaching a sentencing hearing and believe the judge has already made up his mind, the question then is, what can you begin to do in advance of that sentencing? And through interviewing federal judges, speaking with judges on stage, our team guiding more than 1,000 defendants, attending 1,000 sentencing hearings, there's a lot our team has learned about the sentencing process, and we hope that it helps you. So let's go through probably the first question a judge may be thinking before rendering sentence. That first question could include, what have you been doing since you got into trouble? Post-offense conduct is a big deal. You have your offense. How long did it go on? Many white-collar crime cases can drag out for months and years. My case took 3 years. Some defendants pack it in, do nothing, sit at home, play video games, won't work at a job they feel is beneath their skill set. So they do very little to begin building a new record as a law-abiding citizen. So if I were a judge and they want to know that you can earn a law-abiding wage and pay taxes and work to build a new record, in our experience attending sentencings and interviewing judges, 2 of whom we interviewed on YouTube, it would make sense that you need to address the question, what do you do all day? What have you done since you got into trouble? So you're sorry. What does that mean? In our experience, some judges, they're cynical. Many of them were former AUSAs, ran the fraud divisions. They're very cynical. You've got to understand the stakeholders. So judges may think you're saying you're sorry because you got caught, or you're giving money back because you don't want to go to prison. So you've got to give great thought before sentencing hearing to, what does that mean you're sorry? What are you doing to make amends to the people that you've hurt beyond just words? Judge Boo told us, if you break my window, don't say I'm sorry. What is the plan to fix my window? All of you have got to give measurable consideration to doing more than simply saying I'm sorry, but putting a plan in action that demonstrates your remorse and shame. If you are not answering that question before a sentencing hearing, you're off track. You made me look foolish, a federal judge told a defendant who violated his probation. The judge said, I gave you a downward departure at your sentencing, 13 months when the government wanted 30, and here you are back in front of me for a probation violation. The government wants 6 months in prison for the violation, and guess what? They're going to get it. I did not think I would see you back in this courtroom, yet here you are. To be successful as a defendant in advance of sentencing, all the way through the process, you've got to create a record that demonstrates to a judge why you're never going to return to another sentencing hearing. There's this mistaken belief that a white-collar crime or someone immersed in the system for the first time may never return. But not so. People violate their probation. People who are immersed in an investigation in the post-offense conduct stage obstruct, commit perjury, make bad decisions because they're so fearful of going to prison. So a question that you've got to answer through your extensive mitigation work, albeit a video or a narrative or a book or the character reference letters, the community service work that you're doing, the record that you're building, you've got to convey properly to a judge at sentencing why you will never return to another courtroom as a defendant. It would make sense if you owe money, the judge is going to question your plan to pay back victims. I have filmed previous videos on the pros and cons of making restitution payments before sentencing. Suffice to say, if you have significant resources or some resources, you may want to consider contributing, making a payment before sentencing for the right reasons. It can be off-putting to a judge if they look at your probation report and see significant liquidity in assets, yet you don't pledge or make a payment. The downside is you may make a payment and you may actually get the same sentence, as frustrating as that may be. But if your goal is the shortest sentence in the most favorable prison and you're looking to demonstrate why you're worthy of leniency and you're working under belief that nothing you or your lawyer say at sentencing will matter and you've got to do this work leading up to sentencing, if you're working and you're creating a new record and you can set aside some money and help make your victims whole, probably puts you in a better position to get a shorter sentence. Your Honor, I want to spend the rest of my life helping people understand the consequences of drug abuse. And I want them to know that drug abuse is devastating. Hold on. Stop talking. Stop talking. Stop talking. Stop talking. You're still a drug addict. And you're telling me that the plan for the rest of your life is to help other drug addicts. I appreciate that, and I think it's a good goal. But there's nothing you've done leading up to the sentencing hearing today that tells me, one, that you're free of substances, and two, that you've put anything in place, any record, any business, any effort into actually creating a substance abuse center, as you say, to help people become free of drug abuse, to overcome their addictions. A federal judge told that to a defendant at one of the first sentencing hearings I ever attended at a federal prison. And this defendant, with good intentions, was trying to articulate what his plans were for the rest of his life. And rather than the judge letting him go on, he cut him off and said, I'm not a buyer, I'm not a believer, because there is nothing you have done over the last 2 years and leading up to the sentencing hearing that convinces me that this is a realistic plan that you can put in place, because you haven't done it. All of you need to give thought to the same question. What will you do with the rest of your life? Is it believable? Is it specific? I couldn't have gone to my sentencing hearing and said, Your Honor, I'm going to be a stockbroker anymore. I lost my license. Your Honor, I'm going to be a real estate agent. I wasn't going to be a real estate agent anymore. It's got to be realistic, and the plans have to be in motion if you expect a cynical federal judge to believe it. Do not throw happy talk to a judge. Do not tell a judge what you expect them to do. They are going to fillet you. They're going to pick you apart. And if there is nothing in motion leading up to that sentencing, it's going to totally work against you, as it fortunately did for this person who had real ambitions, I thought, yet said the wrong thing to a judge. What will you do for the rest of your life? You've got to begin to work on that before sentencing. Several years ago, I spoke on stage with Judge Benita Pearson in the Northern District of Ohio. And on stage, Judge Pearson answered a question from a lawyer. The lawyer asked this question, Your Honor, how do you suggest we deal with privilege and opportunity in some of our clients who have never known adversity, who have had a lot of breaks in life, who through some pressures made bad decisions? What's the best way to articulate that while being authentic? That was a very good question, and the response from Judge Pearson was enlightening. Essentially, she said, whether you're rich or poor, you've had opportunity, whether it was a one-time crime, impulsive, or over an extended period of time, every defendant has had some fracture in their life, regardless of who they are. Your job as a defendant in advance of sentencing is to articulate through your own words and efforts what these fractures are. I'm not telling you to use it as an excuse. That is where some defendants go bad. They blame their conduct on drinking. They blame it on gambling. They blame it on the pressures at work. They're part of the story. Without question, it's part of that mitigation package. Without question. So the trick, or part of the trick to mitigation, is articulating every fracture in your life, getting into mundane details you may think are boring or superfluous, that even your lawyer may say to you, the judge doesn't want to hear what you were doing at 12 years old. A federal judge on stage told everyone in that room, the defendant's job is to come to sentencing knowing, or that they've expressed every fracture in their life, and two, they've worked at this full time. They've treated preparing for sentencing like a full-time job. Make sure your judge knows every fracture in your life before you step into that federal courtroom. How authentic can you be? How in are you willing to go to truly get the shortest sentence, to truly convey to a cynical judge that you're worthy of leniency? I can tell you in our experience, defendants that go all in and who are honest and who are willing to examine their own conduct get shorter sentences. For example, a client of ours articulated to a judge what he had learned through this experience. And he essentially said, let me tell you what I learned. I took shortcuts. I'm a thief. I wanted to get in 3 years where it takes the average person 10. I've learned there should be consequences for breaking the law. And I know the people in this courtroom who I hurt deserve and want justice. And they may think I'm telling them what they want to hear because I've done nothing but lie for many, many years as I engaged in this fraud and convinced myself that I can make up the numbers, that the next deal would cover the shortfall. So what have I learned? I've learned that I'm a thief. And regardless of how long I serve in prison, I'm going to suffer for the rest of my life. And I've learned that while people face pressures, they don't cheat as I did. So rather than just throw out words, Your Honor, all I can say is I've learned that I've got to create a new record. I've learned that shortcuts don't get you anywhere, and in so doing, they hurt people who trusted you, people who love you the most, including my wife and 3 children, who will suffer more than I ever will in federal prison. So I've learned there are no shortcuts. I've learned that I had opportunities to do it better, and I've learned that my words today are probably meaningless, and it's going to take a lifetime of action for me to get back on track. A client many years ago said something akin to that at a sentencing hearing, and he was crying, and I think it was the first time that the prosecutor or the judge, even his lawyer or any potential victim, believed that he was telling the truth. The first time. I want you to be able to express clearly, with honesty, what you've learned. If you were a thief and you stole, own it. If it was a one-time out-of-character decision, okay, that's better. If it's aberrational, that's better. Our team has a new client who engaged in a significant fraud over 12 years. Harder to mitigate that because it's harder to articulate his conduct was out of character when the government will say his character is very much to cheat. He engaged in big fraud for 12 years. I need all of you thinking and be getting ready to articulate to a judge honestly what you've learned through this experience. A client of ours was expecting 13 years in federal prison with a very tough sentencing judge in Mississippi. A huge healthcare fraud case, several $100 million. In advance of sentencing, our client worked with our team on a very extensive community service project that would positively influence hundreds of thousands of people. It was a 50-minute video, a very lengthy course. And rather than a 5 or 6 minute sentencing video that looks like a bar mitzvah reel or wedding video, this was an authentic message where this very cynical judge was able to see how our client was committed to contributing and giving back to his community, to people who didn't have the breaks and opportunities that he had in life. So I ask all of you, you need to answer the questions they ask. You need to answer the question in advance of a sentencing hearing, as our client did, who got 7 years, not 13. You want to be able to answer, what are you doing authentically, realistically, to give back to your community? How can you measure those contributions? Because at some point you're going to want to do what? Get off probation early. And if you can show up to a sentencing hearing and ask for a mitigated sentence with community service hours that some people do with our team, and then continue to do those community service hours on the other side of sentencing, and also articulate to a judge on probation, at sentencing I was helping this many people. Now 1, 2, or 3 years later, I'm helping this many people. It shows that you're authentic, that you are truly committed to helping, and it shows that you just didn't say you do community service at sentencing to get a shorter sentence, but it continued. Think and answer that question. In what ways are you giving back to your community? Your Honor, I'm so grateful for the opportunity that Lyft gave me to drive for them during the day and to deliver food for DoorDash in the evening. I hope it was a little embarrassing to turn in some of these reviews from Lyft, because previously I was a physician where I worked daily to improve the lives of my patients, to make them healthier and stronger. And I've gone from reviews from patients to turning in 5-star reviews from Lyft. It's a little embarrassing, but I want you to know it's part of the journey. And I needed to work every day to help support my family and come up with a modest restitution payment. And I never expected, after going to an Ivy League school and a very good medical school, that I'd be driving for Lyft and delivering food in the evening. But I made really bad decisions. And working is bringing a lot of value to my life. It's helping me stay productive. It's helping me remain humble and recognize that I have to work and I can't be a doctor anymore. And I'm doing it with dignity and with pride and doing the best I can to support my family. Think about that for a moment. A doctor from an Ivy League school drives for Lyft during the day, delivers food for DoorDash in the evening, was able to convey to a judge how long he had done it and why, what he learned from it. Judges want to know if you're working to build that new record. Judges want to know that you are committed to doing whatever it takes to get back on track. Why? Scores of defendants would rather sit at home, as I mentioned in the first question. What do you do all day? Or the second question. Judges want to know that you can work, that you can create a new record, even if that means doing a job beneath your skill set. Are you working leading up to sentencing? Are you filling out applications? Are you demonstrating and proving worthy of the love and support that people are giving you? Or are you defaulting to what I hear too much? That job is beneath my skill set. I have an MBA. I have a degree from an Ivy League school. Doesn't matter to a cynical judge. They want to know if you're working to build a new record, whatever it takes. So there you have it. Some questions you should consider answering before a sentencing hearing, whether you believe the judge's mind is made up at sentencing or not. Thank you very much for watching. And again, like and subscribe to this video. Bye-bye.